The lobby of the Grand Royal Hotel was bright and busy, and people moved around with smiles on their faces. But the concierge named Daniel stood behind his desk quietly, doing his work with calm hands. He was a man who never tried to be noticed. He greeted guests politely, carried luggage when needed, and answered questions with a gentle voice. Most people never looked at him twice. He was simply part of the hotel furniture in their eyes. Always there, always silent, always helpful. One afternoon, everything changed when a loud group entered the hotel. At the front of the group walked Mr. Grant, a famous millionaire known for his jokes, his expensive clothes, and his habit of making fun of people he thought were below him. He was laughing with his friends, waving his hands, bragging about money, and enjoying the attention around him. His voice echoed through the lobby, drawing eyes toward him as he approached the front desk. Something caught his attention. In the center of the lobby stood a grand black piano, polished and shining under the lights. Mr. Grant smirked and nudged his friends. He said loudly, "Look at that piano. I bet no one here can even play it." His friends laughed as if he had told the funniest joke in the world. Then his eyes landed on Daniel, who was organizing papers behind the desk. Mr. Grant pointed at him and said even louder, "Hey you concierge, can you play that thing?" Daniel looked up. Surprised, he shook his head slightly, not knowing what the man wanted. The millionaire grinned wider and said, "If you can play that piano, I'll marry you." The whole lobby burst into laughter. People looked at Daniel as if he had just become part of a comedy show. Daniel felt his face grow warm with embarrassment. He wanted to disappear. He did not mind working quietly. He did not mind being invisible, but being mocked in front of strangers made his chest tighten with shame. He gave a nervous smile and lowered his eyes, hoping the moment would end quickly. Mr. Grant kept laughing, and his friends slapped his back like they had witnessed something amazing. But the millionaire had no idea who Daniel really was. He did not know that years ago, Daniel had dreamed of becoming a great pianist. He did not know that Daniel once trained under a respected music teacher who said his fingers were special. He did not know that Daniel had spent his childhood practicing, dreaming, and believing he would one day play on big stages. Life had changed those dreams, but the talent had not disappeared. It only slept quietly inside him. A few guests who noticed Daniel's reaction frowned. One woman whispered to her husband that the millionaire had gone too far. Another man looked angry, as if he wanted to say something. But no one spoke loudly enough to stop Mr. Grant. His laughter kept filling the air, drowning everything else around him. Daniel tried to focus on his work again, but his hands shook slightly inside him. Something old and forgotten began to move. It felt like a spark from a past life, a feeling he had buried long ago. He remembered a time when a piano was not a burden but a friend, when music lived inside him and made the world feel bright. He remembered his mother listening to him play, smiling proudly. He remembered the joy of creating a melody that felt like magic. He had not touched a piano in years, not since responsibility forced him into a different life. After his mother became sick, he quit his music school and worked full-time to pay for her medicine. When she passed away, the pain made him stop playing completely. Every key reminded him of her voice, her smile, her soft encouragement. He locked all his music memories deep inside and built a quiet life as a concierge. But today, because of a single joke, those memories opened again. Something inside him whispered, "Why did you stop?" Daniel looked at the grand piano across the lobby, its surface shining like it was calling to him. He quickly looked away, trying to shake the thought out of his mind. He told himself it was foolish. He told himself he did not belong at that piano anymore. Yet the voice inside him did not stop. It grew stronger. It said, "You are more than he thinks you are." And that tiny whisper changed everything. While the millionaire walked away still laughing, Daniel stood behind the desk with a quiet fire growing in his heart. A moment that seemed like a joke to everyone else became the moment that reopened the door to his old dream. He did not know how, he did not know when, but something inside him knew this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Daniel walked through the long hallway after his shift ended. His steps slow and heavy. He usually felt calm after work. But this night was different. The millionaire's joke kept replaying in his mind like an echo he could not escape. He tried to shake it off, tried to forget the laughter that had filled the lobby. But the sound stuck to him like a shadow following him everywhere he went. When he reached the staff exit, he paused and leaned against the wall. The cool air touched his face, but it did not calm the storm inside him. He asked himself why a simple joke hurt so much. After all, the millionaire did not know him, did not know his past, did not know anything about the life Daniel had lived before becoming a concierge. But maybe that was exactly why it hurt, because the man had spoken without knowing the truth. And the truth was painful. Daniel's life had not always been quiet. He was once a boy with bright eyes and fast fingers. He grew up in a small home with a mother who believed in him more than anyone else in the world. She saved money from her long shifts just to buy him a second-hand keyboard. She told him, "Your hands carry music." Daniel, and he believed her, music became his world. Every note he played made him feel alive, like he could breathe in a different way. A local music teacher discovered him at a community event. The teacher listened to him play and immediately saw something rare. "You have a gift," she told him. She offered him free lessons because she believed his talent should not be wasted. Daniel worked hard, practiced every day, learned faster than anyone else in his class. People started calling him a prodigy. His mother cried happy tears during his small performances. But life changed the moment his mother fell sick. The doctors used complicated words, expensive treatments, and painful truths. Daniel dropped everything to take care of her. He left music school, even though his teacher begged him not to give up. He took the concierge job at the Grand Royal Hotel because he needed steady pay. He told himself it was only temporary, but temporary became permanent when his mother's condition worsened. He remembered the nights when he sat beside her hospital bed, holding her cold hand. She told him, "Don't stop playing," but after she died, the world lost its sound for him. Every piano key reminded him of her absence, of the life he could not save. So he locked the music inside him and built a quiet life where no one knew who he once was. Tonight, though, something felt different. That mocking challenge had cracked open a door he thought was sealed forever. A strange mix of anger and longing filled his chest, and he did not know what to do with it. He walked to the bus stop, sat down, and closed his eyes. The sound of passing traffic faded, replaced by memories of melodies he had not touched in years. At the hotel, people were still talking about the millionaire's joke. Some laughed about it, some felt sorry for Daniel. But there were two employees who watched him closely and noticed the way his eyes had changed. One was Sarah, the receptionist, and the other was Miguel, the night security guard. They had always liked Daniel's quiet kindness, and tonight they saw something else in him. Something that looked like a spark waking up. Sarah said to Miguel, "Do you think he was hurt?" And Miguel replied, "Anyone would be." But then he added softly, "There's something more though. Like he's remembering something." They agreed to check on him the next day. Maybe offer support if he needed it. No one in the hotel expected what was coming. Not even Daniel himself. When Daniel reached home, he unlocked his small apartment and stepped inside. The silence greeted him like an old friend. He placed his keys on the table and stood in the middle of the room, unsure why he felt so restless. Then he noticed something he had forgotten about for years. A black cloth covering a shape in the corner. He slowly approached it, his heart beating faster with every step. He pulled off the cloth, and there it was. The old keyboard his mother had bought for him, dust gathered thick on the edges. The keys yellowed with time. He touched one key gently, and a soft broken sound came out. His hands trembled. He had not touched an instrument since the day he lost her. A heavy breath escaped his chest, a mix of sadness and longing twisting together. He sat down, placed both hands on the keyboard, and closed his eyes. For a long moment he did not move. He simply listened to the silence, then slowly, his fingers pressed the keys again. The sound was weak, uneven, but familiar, like a voice he had not heard in years speaking again. Tears filled his eyes as his fingers began moving on their own, remembering shapes, remembering songs, remembering the boy he once was. And in that small apartment, in the quiet of the night, Daniel played his first melody after many years. A melody filled with pain, memory, and hope. A melody that would soon lead him back to the grand piano in the hotel lobby, and toward a future he never expected to face again. The next morning at the Grand Royal Hotel felt strangely charged, as if the building itself sensed something brewing. Guests moved through the lobby, chatting and laughing, but whispers floated in the air, the kind of whispers that spread fast and clung to every corner. Everyone seemed to be talking about one thing: the millionaire's joke from the previous day. Some found it funny, others found it rude. But nobody knew the quiet storm growing inside Daniel. Sarah noticed Daniel the moment he walked in. He looked tired but different. His eyes carried shadows and light mixed together. She greeted him gently. "Are you okay?" Daniel gave a small smile. "I'm fine," but his voice carried a weight she could hear clearly. He did not want pity, and she respected that. Still, she watched him with worry as he walked to his desk. Meanwhile, something else was happening in the world outside the hotel. The video clip a guest had recorded yesterday had been uploaded to social media. It showed the millionaire pointing at Daniel, laughing loudly, and delivering his joke. Comments flooded the post within hours. Some mocked Daniel, calling him the silent concierge. Others were angry at the millionaire for humiliating a stranger. People began arguing online, and soon the clip went viral. By noon, hotel staff gathered secretly in the break room, staring at a phone playing the video. Some covered their mouths, shocked. Others shook their heads. Miguel frowned deeply and said, "This is not right." Sarah whispered, "He doesn't deserve this." Daniel was the last one to learn how big the video had become. A bellboy shyly approached him and said, "Sir, people are posting about you online." Daniel froze. His stomach tightened. He asked softly, "Posting what?" The boy showed him the video. Daniel watched himself on the screen, watched the millionaire's mocking smile, watched the crowd laughing, watched his own uncomfortable expression. Something inside him twisted painfully. He felt exposed, like the entire world had seen a private wound. He handed the phone back and said nothing for a long time. His hands shook slightly as he returned to his work, but his mind was far away. He kept thinking about the keyboard he played the night before. The shaky but familiar notes, the feeling of music returning to him like a lost friend. Part of him felt alive again, but now the world expected something from him. Not because they knew he could play, but because they wanted entertainment. To them, he was a character in a joke, and the thought made his heart ache. The video's popularity grew even more during the afternoon. Bloggers wrote about it, influencers reacted to it. Some joked, some defended him, some demanded the millionaire apologize. But the clip stirred curiosity too. People began asking, can the concierge actually play? Rumors started to form, stories imagined. Strangers debated as if they knew him personally by evening. A news reporter contacted the hotel's PR department. She asked whether the concierge would respond to the challenge. The PR manager laughed nervously and said, "Oh no. It was just a silly moment." But the reporter was not convinced. She sensed a story. And stories with humiliation and mystery always attracted viewers. She decided to visit the hotel the next day. While everyone was talking, Daniel moved through his tasks quietly, placing keys on the hooks, assisting guests, answering calls. But inside his mind, something kept growing. A soft whisper that refused to fade. It said, "Play." He tried to ignore it, telling himself that the world was laughing at him, not cheering for him, but another voice in his heart answered, "Show them who you really are." The two feelings battled inside him, fear and longing twisting together. During a quiet moment at the desk, Miguel approached him and said softly, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." Daniel nodded, grateful for the kindness, but Miguel saw something in his eyes, something the concierge himself did not understand yet. It was not anger, not sadness, but a spark. A small burning spark waking up after years of silence. Later that evening, as Daniel walked through the lobby on his way home, he stopped for a moment in front of the grand piano. He had never stood so close to it before. The glossy surface reflected the lights above. The keys seemed to glow softly in the dimness. He lifted his hand slowly, almost touching the piano. But he pulled back quickly when he heard voices approaching. He turned away and hurried out of the hotel, his heart beating fast. Outside, the sky was darkening. The cool breeze touched his face as he walked. But inside he felt warm, not with comfort, but with determination growing quietly like a flame hidden in his chest. The world thought he was just a concierge, a nobody, someone easy to laugh at. But deep inside him was a talent that once made people cry with joy. A gift he had locked away after losing everything. He did not know it yet. But soon the world would stop laughing. Soon they would listen. Soon they would watch him sit at that piano and hear music he thought he had buried forever. The viral clip had started something he could not control. Something bigger than embarrassment or fear. It had awakened the musician he once dreamed of becoming, and without realizing it, Daniel had already taken the first step toward a moment that would change his life, and everyone else's forever. That night, the hotel felt different to Daniel. The hallways were quiet, the lights dimmed, and the air carried a strange heaviness, like the building itself was holding its breath. He finished his shift slowly, his mind drifting again and again to the piano in the lobby. He tried to walk straight out of the hotel like he always did, but his feet stopped moving when he passed the ballroom doors. The ballroom was normally closed at night, but the cleaning staff sometimes kept it open while they worked. Tonight the door stood slightly open, a soft slice of golden light spilling into the hallway. Daniel stared at that light for a long moment, his heart pounding as if something inside was calling him. He took a shaky breath and pushed the door open just enough to slip inside. The ballroom was empty except for a cleaning trolley in the corner. The large space felt peaceful, and the air smelled faintly of perfume and old memories. In the center of the room stood a second piano, older than the one in the lobby, its wood slightly worn, but still beautiful. Daniel's eyes softened the moment he saw it, as if he had found a piece of his past waiting patiently for him. He stepped closer slowly, each footstep echoing across the polished floor. When he reached the piano, he hesitated. His hand hovered over the lid, trembling. He felt like a child again, standing on a stage for the first time, terrified but curious. After a long breath, he lifted the lid, revealing the keys. Some were slightly chipped, some yellowed with age, but they still looked magical to him. Daniel sat down on the bench, the cushions sinking softly under his weight. For a moment, he simply stared at the keys, unsure if he had the courage to play. Memories of his mother's voice floated into his mind. Her gentle encouragement, her warm smile whenever he practiced, her soft laughter when he played something beautiful. The piano felt like a doorway back to her. And that thought scared him and comforted him at the same time. He placed his fingers on the keys. The cold surface made him shiver. He pressed one key lightly. The sound echoed across the empty room. Lonely and fragile, he pressed another, then another. The sounds were uneven, but something inside him began to loosen. Slowly, carefully, he started to play a simple tune, one he had learned as a child. The notes stumbled at first, but then they began to flow. The melody filled the ballroom. Soft and trembling, Daniel closed his eyes. Letting the music guide his hands, each note pulled another memory out of him. Memories of days when life felt full of hope, when dreams seemed possible, when he believed he could become someone great. Tears formed in his eyes. But he did not stop playing. He could not stop. The music had waited too long to come alive again. As he played, the cleaning lady entered the ballroom quietly. She was carrying a mop and humming to herself. But when she heard the piano, she froze. Her eyes widened in surprise. She had worked at the hotel for 10 years and never heard anyone play the old ballroom piano before. She stepped closer slowly, watching Daniel with growing amazement. She recognized the emotion in his playing. The way he leaned into the music like it was part of him when Daniel finished the melody. He sat still for a moment, breathing heavily. Wiping his tears with the back of his hand, he felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. As if the music had opened a door inside him he did not know how to close again. The cleaning lady finally stepped forward and said softly, "That was beautiful," Daniel startled. He had not realized anyone was watching. He stood quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," he said. "I shouldn't be here," but the woman shook her head. Her eyes warm and kind. "No," she said, "you should be exactly here. You have a gift." Her voice carried no judgment, only admiration. And Daniel felt something inside him melt at her kindness. She walked closer and said, "People like him can laugh, but they cannot take your talent from you." Daniel looked down at his hands, the hands he had once been proud of. The hands he had abandoned for years, now shaking with emotion. The woman placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Maybe it's time the world hears you again." Daniel swallowed hard. Unsure how to respond, he had spent so many years hiding his talent, hiding his grief, hiding himself. The thought of playing publicly terrified him. But the thought of never playing again felt even worse now. The cleaning lady smiled and said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. But you should never silence your own gift." Those words stayed with him even after she left the room. He sat alone at the piano again, running his fingers gently over the keys for the first time in years. He felt the spark inside him growing stronger. He looked at the piano and whispered, Maybe I can play again." The ballroom stayed silent. But something deep inside him answered with a quiet, steady yes. Daniel stood up slowly, took one last look at the piano, and walked out of the ballroom with a new feeling inside him. Not confidence, not courage, not yet. But something different, something hopeful, something alive. The spark had returned, and this time, he was not going to let it fade. The next morning, news spread through the hotel like wildfire. Whispers followed Daniel wherever he went. The cleaning lady had not meant to start anything, but she told one coworker about his beautiful playing, and that coworker told two more. Soon half the staff knew that the quiet concierge might not be so ordinary after all. They tried not to stare at him as he worked, but curiosity filled their eyes. Sarah approached him at the desk, pretending she needed a form signed, but her voice held a soft excitement. "Daniel," she said gently. "Miguel told me the rumor." Daniel froze, his heart skipping a beat. "Rumor," he repeated. "What rumor?" Sarah smiled a little, her eyes warm. "That you can play the piano beautifully." Daniel looked down quickly, his cheeks warming. He whispered, "It's nothing." But Sarah shook her head slowly. "Daniel, people don't talk about nothing," she said. "You surprised them." He wanted to deny it, wanted to run away from the sudden attention. But he could not forget the way it felt to play last night. The way the music filled him like a missing breath returning after years underwater. Still, He kept his head low and continued working, hoping the whispers would fade, but they did not. They grew louder as the day passed. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, the viral video had reached even larger audiences. Bloggers discussed it, radio hosts joked about it, and one local news station even aired a short segment about the piano challenge incident. Viewers loved the mystery around the quiet concierge. Some defended him fiercely, saying the millionaire had acted like a bully. Others demanded that Daniel accept the challenge to shut the millionaire up. Arguments spread as fast as the clip at noon. The hotel manager called an emergency meeting with the staff. Everyone gathered in the break room. Tension filled the air. The manager cleared her throat and said, "We have a situation." She explained that reporters were calling, influencers wanted interviews, and even a famous TV show had reached out asking about the challenge. The room buzzed with shock. Nobody expected the internet to care this much. "But there is more," the manager said. "Mr. Grant himself contacted us." The staff gasped. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He did not want to hear what came next. The manager continued. "He wants to return to the hotel this weekend and make the challenge event public." The room erupted in chatter. People were excited, nervous, and confused all at once. The manager raised her hands for silence. "This will bring attention to the hotel." "So we have agreed." Daniel's heart dropped. Sarah quickly looked at him. Her face tightening with concern, she whispered, "Are you okay?" Daniel nodded weakly. But he was not okay. He felt trapped, pressured, exposed. He never wanted any of this. He had simply wanted to do his job, live quietly, and avoid reopening painful memories. But the world, it seemed, had other plans for him. During his break, Daniel stepped outside to breathe. He sat on a bench near the hotel garden, staring at the flowers without really seeing them. He felt overwhelmed, afraid, and strangely angry, not at the world, not even at the millionaire, but at himself, because deep inside, he knew he wanted to play. A part of him wanted to sit at that piano and show the truth, not for fame, not for revenge, but because music had always been his identity, the part of him he loved most. While he sat there, Miguel approached, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to Daniel and sat beside him. "You know," Miguel said softly, "people talk a lot, but only you know your story." Daniel listened quietly. Miguel continued, "If you play, play because you want to, not because he challenged you." His words sank into Daniel's heart like seeds finding soil. Later that afternoon, reporters actually arrived at the lobby, carrying cameras, microphones, and bright smiles filled with curiosity. They were not allowed to talk to Daniel, but they filmed the piano, interviewed guests, and created even more excitement. Some guests even lined up to take pictures with the piano, as if it was now a celebrity object. Daniel watched from a distance, feeling smaller and smaller each minute. But then something unexpected happened. An elderly woman approached him. Her eyes kind, she said, "Young man, are you the concierge from the video?" Hesitantly. Daniel nodded. "I just want you to know," she said gently. "The world is cheering for you." Her words were simple, but they struck something deep inside him. A warmth spread through his chest, soft and steady. The kind of warmth music used to give him, that night when his shift ended. Daniel walked toward the ballroom again. He did not know why. He only knew his heart was leading him there. When he pushed the door open, the piano seemed to wait for him in the center of the room, quiet, patient, welcoming. He sat down slowly, placed his hands on the keys, and closed his eyes. Then he played. He played not for the millionaire, not for the hotel, not for the internet, but for himself. And the music that filled the ballroom was stronger, richer, braver than the night before. Each note felt like a promise, each chord like a heartbeat. Daniel did not know what the weekend would bring. But tonight, he knew one thing with certainty. He was no longer afraid of the piano. He was no longer hiding from who he once was. The world might be waiting to see him fail, but he was finally ready to show them that he was more than a joke, more than a rumor, more than a silent concierge. He was a musician, and the world was about to hear him. The night before the big weekend arrived faster than Daniel expected. The hotel buzzed with excitement. Staff whispered in corners, reporters lingered outside, and guests extended their stays just to witness what everyone was calling the piano challenge. The lobby felt like a stage waiting for its show to begin. And Daniel felt the weight of every eye, every phone, and every expectation pressing against his back like a tight hand. But inside him, something had changed. Instead of fear swallowing him whole, there was now a quiet strength slowly spreading. A strength built from nights of playing in the ballroom, from memories of his mother's encouragement, from the cleaning lady's warm words, and from the gentle support of Sarah and Miguel. The music inside him was alive again, and with it came courage he thought he had lost forever. After his shift ended, Daniel stood alone in the locker room, staring at his reflection in the small mirror. He barely recognized the man looking back at him, not because of any physical change, but because of the fire behind his eyes. He whispered to himself, "I can do this." And for the first time, he believed it, truly believed it. His hands no longer shook when he imagined playing in front of a crowd. They steadied, ready, still. He needed air, needed space, needed silence. So he walked out into the night. The city lights glittered softly, and the cool breeze brushed against his face. He walked without direction, only following the rhythm of his thoughts. Eventually he found himself in front of a park. The same park where he used to practice piano pieces as a young boy, where his mother sat on a bench, clapping after every song he finished. Daniel walked into the park slowly, memories rising around him like ghosts he welcomed. He found the old bench and sat, running his fingers over the worn wood. He closed his eyes and imagined her beside him, smiling, breathing softly. Filled with pride, he whispered, "I'm playing again, Mom," and a small tear escaped, but it wasn't a tear of pain. It was a tear of healing. As he sat there, a young boy nearby chased a soccer ball and accidentally kicked it toward Daniel. The ball landed at his feet. The boy ran over and said shyly, "Sorry, sir." Daniel picked up the ball and returned it with a smile. The boy looked at him curiously and asked, "Why are you sitting alone?" Daniel hesitated, but then said, "I'm thinking about something important." The boy nodded seriously, then asked, "Are you scared?" Daniel blinked. "Surprised? A little," he admitted. The boy kicked the ground and said, "My dad says being scared means you're about to do something brave." The words hit Daniel's heart like a warm light. He smiled softly. "Your dad is a smart man," he said. The boy grinned and ran off, leaving Daniel with a new sense of calm washing over him. When he returned to the hotel, the night security guard, Miguel, spotted him and said, "There you are. We were looking for you." Daniel raised an eyebrow in confusion. "Why?" he asked. Miguel smiled. "Because someone left a gift for you." He led Daniel to the break room, where a small box sat on the table. A handwritten note lay on top. Daniel picked it up and read, "For the man who forgot how bright his light is." It was unsigned. Inside the box was a pair of elegant white gloves, the kind pianists wore to protect their hands before performances. Daniel touched them gently, overwhelmed. He had no idea who sent them, but the message felt like a blessing. A reminder, a push forward, he whispered. "Thank you," even though no one was in the room with him, with the gloves tucked safely into his bag. He headed to the ballroom again. Tonight was not for practice. Tonight was for centering himself. He sat at the piano, closed his eyes, and let silence sit with him. The quiet room felt like a sanctuary. He rested his hands on the keys but did not play. He simply breathed with the piano, letting its presence steady him. Then he imagined the lobby tomorrow. The cameras, the crowd, the millionaire's smirk, the whispers, the pressure, but instead of fear tightening his chest, he felt something else. He felt a rising determination, a sense of purpose. He whispered to the piano. "I'm not doing this for them." He pressed a single note, soft as a heartbeat. "I'm doing this for me." The note floated through the ballroom. Warm and steady, he pressed another, then another, until a quiet melody formed, the kind that sounded like hope taking shape. He played slowly, thoughtfully, feeling every vibration in his fingertips. The music built inside him like a promise. Tomorrow, he would show his truth, his gift, his heart, as he walked out of the ballroom. He glanced back at the piano one last time. The room felt lighter, brighter, almost alive, Daniel whispered. Tomorrow, and the word carried no fear, only readiness. He went home that night with a calm heart, slipping the white gloves onto his hands as he stood in front of his mirror. He felt like a musician again, like the boy his mother loved, like the man who had finally found himself after years of silence. Tomorrow the world would watch, but tonight, Daniel finally believed he deserved to be heard. The lobby of the Grand Royal Hotel had never been this crowded. People filled every corner. Reporters checked their cameras. Guests whispered excitedly, and staff members moved nervously around the edges. The grand piano stood in the center like a silent judge watching everyone, waiting for the moment that would decide everything. Today was the day of the challenge, and the entire building buzzed like a heartbeat, growing faster and faster. Mr. Grant, the millionaire who had started all of this with one careless joke, arrived with his friends as if stepping onto a stage. He laughed loudly, confident and smug, waving at the cameras as though he owned the moment. He wore an expensive suit, shining shoes, and a grin that dared anyone to challenge him. He looked around and said loudly, "Where's the concierge with the magic fingers?" His friends chuckled behind him. But today, Daniel was not the same man who had stood silently behind the desk a week ago. He walked into the lobby slowly, calmly, each step steady and sure. People turned to look at him. Whispers rose like waves. Some eyes held curiosity, others held kindness. But none of it made him waver. He wore the white gloves someone had gifted him. His uniform neat, his face calm, but inside him, music swirled like fire. Sarah and Miguel stood near the front desk, watching him with proud, worried eyes. Sarah whispered, "You can do this." Miguel nodded firmly. "Show them who you are." Daniel felt their support like a warm hand on his back. Pushing him forward, he stepped closer to the piano, his heart beating not with fear this time, but with purpose. A reporter stepped forward and asked, "Daniel, do you accept Mr. Grant's challenge?" Daniel looked at her, then at the crowd, then at the piano. He nodded slowly. "I accept." The lobby exploded with murmurs. Some excited, some shocked, some emotional. The millionaire smirked and shrugged, pretending the whole thing was still a joke. But something in his eyes flickered with uncertainty, as if he sensed the moment slipping beyond his control. Daniel approached the piano and ran his gloved fingers along the edge. The surface was cool, smooth, familiar, like greeting an old friend he had missed more than words could say. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and sat down on the bench. The crowd hushed instantly. Even the reporters lowered their cameras slightly, sensing something important was about to happen. For a moment, Daniel did nothing. He simply rested his hands above the keys, listening to the quiet, listening to his heartbeat, remembering his mother's voice telling him, "Play from your heart, not from fear." A warmth spread through his chest, and the noise of the world faded away. All he could feel was the piano calling to him. Then he began to play. The first note rang out clear and soft, floating through the lobby like a drop of sunlight. The second note followed, then the third, forming a gentle melody that touched the air like a breath of hope. The crowd went silent, stunned. No one had expected this. Not the depth, not the emotion, not the beauty. Daniel's fingers moved with grace, like they had never forgotten. Like the years of silence had only made the music stronger, the melody grew richer, deeper. Telling a story with no words, a story of a boy with dreams, of a mother who believed in him, of loss, pain, healing, and rediscovery. Every note carried a memory, every chord carried a feeling. And people listened with open hearts, some wiped their eyes quietly. Even the reporters lowered their cameras, caught in the magic of the moment. Mr. Grant's smile faded slowly, his friends stopped laughing. They looked at each other in shock, realizing that the concierge they mocked was not a man to laugh at, but a man to admire. Daniel's music rose higher, brighter, filling the room with a power that swallowed every cruel word, every careless joke, every doubt ever thrown at him. He played like someone who had found himself again. He played like someone who remembered who he was. He played like someone who refused to hide anymore. When the final note drifted into silence, the lobby stayed still for a heartbeat. Then the entire crowd erupted into applause. Loud, thunderous, emotional. Some people stood from their chairs. Others lifted their phones with shaking hands. Tears streamed down faces. Even staff members clapped with full hearts. Sarah covered her mouth, crying softly. Miguel's eyes shone with pride. Daniel stood slowly and bowed his head, overwhelmed, grateful, humbled. He looked around the room, and for the first time in years, he felt seen, truly seen, not as a concierge, not as a joke, but as a musician, a man with a gift, a man with a story worth respecting. Mr. Grant stepped forward, his face red, his voice awkward. I didn't know, he said quietly. Daniel looked at him without anger, only calm truth. You didn't need to know, he replied gently. You just needed to respect. The millionaire lowered his head. Ashamed, the cameras caught everything, but Daniel did not care. He had already moved beyond humiliation, beyond fear. He walked away from the piano with a new strength in his heart, knowing the moment was bigger than a challenge. Bigger than a joke. It was his return, his rebirth. His music claiming its place again, and the world had just witnessed it. The applause from the lobby stayed with Daniel long after the crowd dispersed. It echoed in his ears like a warm heartbeat, steady and full of life. As he walked away from the piano, he felt lighter than he had felt in years. The music had not just touched the people around him. It had healed something inside him, something he thought was broken forever. The staff cheered for him, guests congratulated him, and even reporters softened their voices when they spoke his name. Sarah reached him first, tears still shining in her eyes. She hugged him tightly and whispered, I knew you could do it. Miguel clapped him on the back with a proud grin and said, You didn't just play, Daniel, you rose. The cleaning lady, who had been watching quietly from the hallway, lifted her hand in a small salute. Her eyes full of pride, Daniel nodded to her gratefully, knowing her support had helped bring him back to himself. But the world outside the hotel had not seen the last of him. Within hours, the video of his performance exploded across social media. Millions watched him play. Thousands commented, praising his humility, his strength, his heart. Strangers from different countries wrote messages saying his music made them cry, made them hopeful, made them believe in second chances again. Daniel's story spread like light cutting through a storm. The next morning, the hotel lobby was filled with flowers, letters, and small gifts from people who had been moved by his performance. One child sent him a drawing of a man playing the piano with a heart glowing from his chest. Another person wrote, Your music brought me peace today. Daniel picked up each letter carefully, reading them slowly, letting the kindness wash over him like warm sunlight. Then the hotel manager approached him with an unusual expression, a mixture of excitement and disbelief. She said, Daniel, I need to show you something. She handed him her tablet. On the screen were emails from music schools, concert halls, and even television talk shows. All asking to meet him, all offering opportunities, all wanting to hear him play again. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had never imagined anything like this. One message stood out from the rest. It came from a prestigious music academy he once dreamed of joining. The message read, "We saw your performance, Daniel. Your talent is extraordinary. We would be honored if you would perform at our upcoming charity gala." Daniel stared at the screen. Unable to speak, memories of his childhood dreams rushed back to him. Dreams he thought had died with his mother, now rising again like a melody reborn. That evening, the hotel organized a small celebration for him. The ballroom glowed with soft lights. Staff members gathered around a long table filled with snacks and warm smiles. Someone put up a sign that read, "To our maestro." Daniel laughed softly when he saw it. Embarrassed but touched, he had spent years blending into the background. And now people saw him as someone bright, someone talented, someone worth celebrating. As the night went on, guests asked him questions. Reporters took notes. But Daniel's mind drifted to the piano once more. Asterisk.